Well, hi folks, this is Darren with My RV Works, and we're going to be starting a whole new playlist. And the purpose of this playlist is going to be preventative maintenance that are things that you can check before you take your RV out on a trip, or when you get back from a trip, or if you're full timing in your RV and you're living in it for an extended period of time. These are things that are best practices that I've come across in my years of working on these RVs. If folks would be paying attention to these things, I think they would all be saying My RV Works because they've worked out all the kinks before things go awry. Okay, so what our idea is, this will be a playlist we'll just be adding to from time to time when we get some time to add stuff into it. And the idea is all the things on this check sheet. We're going to come out with a check sheet and everything. We'll have little video links for them all. Okay, so that's the vision, that's the idea. And so if you have an RV, so we got to start somewhere. So let's just start with the travel trailers and the fifth wheels. Why am I going to start with that? Because on our bell curve of service calls, overwhelmingly the service calls that we get are going to be your travel trailers and your fifth wheels. So looking at my metadata of the customers that we serve, yeah, let's start with travel trailers and fifth wheels. And then we'll build on this. Like I said, you'll find it in our playlist. Just navigate to the playlist part of our channel and you'll see one on preventative maintenance. We might change the name from time to time, but it's going to have something to do with preventative maintenance or annual maintenance or quarterly maintenance or things like that. Whatever we come up with, you're going to find it on our playlist. So go play around with our playlist. You're going to find one that's labeled something like preventative maintenance, RV maintenance, things like that. So these are the things that you would be doing every time you take your RV out, every quarter, every month, every 6 months, every year. So our intention is to make that. So without any further ado, let's start off with travel trailers and fifth wheels, horse trailers, anything that you're going to be towing behind a tow vehicle. Okay, so let's start with those first. So the first thing I want you guys to check is your breakaway cable. You might notice that these big over-the-road truckers that have the CDLs, they have to do a pre-trip inspection on their rig every time they take the thing out. And if you're going to be towing a vehicle, why should you be any different? We're all sharing the same highway. And so the purpose of that breakaway, we do have a video where I do talk about the different color codes, and I've even done a video on it. That was one we came out with quite a while ago, and I'll be coming out with a newer one with some newer ideas that we've experienced. But I do want you to test that and make sure that it works. So if you have a trailer that's got 2 axles on it, you have to have a breakaway cable. I have an opinion that if you have a trailer, you should have a breakaway cable. And when you connect that breakaway cable, you don't want to hook it to the same hitch. We've seen situations where, so here's a scenario. Here's your trailer, and it's connected to the receiver. The receiver is like a 2-inch receiver, and it goes into your little square slot, and you run a pin through it, and then you have a cotter pin or something that holds it in. And we've seen where the breakaway cables are attached to that assembly in some way. That's not where you connect that breakaway cable. If that pin were to pull out of that keeper, and then vibration, now the keeper falls out. We've seen where the pins are missing or they rusted off. And just visualize that whole receiver coming out of the receiver hitch, okay? And now your trailer is going down the highway and you're going in this direction, it's going in that direction. So that breakaway cable needs to be attached to the frame member of the tow vehicle. So if that scenario should happen, we've even seen where the ball, they didn't tighten the nut correctly on the ball and the balls are loose, and sometimes that nut falls off, the ball falls off the hitch. So these are some real world scenarios. So if that were to happen and that trailer starts going south when you're going north, that breakaway cable is going to be pulled out of your trailer because the cable is actually attached to the tow vehicle. Make sure that you have that configuration. And what that'll do is engage your brakes. Okay, so you're going to have a battery on board your trailer because that's where the power is going to come from that engages those brakes. And basically it's going to lock those brakes up. 100% pure 12 volts going to those brake pads, okay? So I want you to check that and just pull it and put it back in. Make sure that it pulls back and forth. If you have a battery on your RV, take a moment and just check it because that's a safety concern, okay? When we do come out with a video, we'll make a little link to it and you'll be able to see more details on what I'm talking about, okay? But that's the first thing I want you to check on. If you're going to be on the highway and you're going to be towing a trailer, let's make sure that our breakaway cables are there, that they're not frayed, that the cables aren't dragging the ground, and make sure that you connect that to the frame and not the hitch. Okay, so that's the first thing I want you to be looking for. The next thing would be that 7-way pigtail. Okay, you're seeing a theme here. It's all about the connection of that tow vehicle to that trailer. The 7-way, you might have a 4-way flat, you might have a 6-way, you might have a 7-way, you may have a 9-way. But let's make sure that that pigtail is connected. A lot of times when we get called in is the jacket of the wire has pulled away from that socket and all the wires are loose in there because it's been yanked on. There's a strain relief screw that holds a jacket in. Sometimes that gets pulled loose. Let's clean that up, okay? Let's look at our 7-way connector. I went to plug in my trailer just the other day, and the 7-way was on the ground. I used some dielectric grease on all of my fittings at that point, and it was down, and I picked it up, and there was sticks and grass in that area, and if I would have not cleaned that, then that would have been shoved in farther, and now you're just asking for problems. Now, there is something I want you to be aware of. I did another video on these 7 ways where we talk about the color coding, okay? And I renamed that video. Let's say if I came out with that video a couple years ago, I had to rename it. There are several standards for the color coding of a 7-way connector, okay? You have the SEA standard, and then you have the RV standard. There's an agricultural standard. There's the over-the-road truck standard. So what that means is I'm gonna use an example of a 7-way pin. You have your 7 ways, okay, and the circuits are going to land on the same pins, but the color of the wire is going to change. Okay, so if you put your left blinker on and your marker lights are blinking instead of your left blinker on, then you're not wiring it to the right standard. We're going to get into all that. I'm going to make a whole nother video. I've already got a video out. We'll make a link to the video I've already made, but we're going to go even deeper on that because there does seem to be some confusion on these different standards. Why are there different standards? I don't know. They didn't consult with me. If it was up to me, I'd make it all the same standard. But it goes back to things I've mentioned before in these videos. Never, ever, ever assume the color of a wire is what you think it would be. Don't judge a circuit by the color of the wire. Don't judge people by the color of their skin. There you go, okay? So let's verify with our meter that when we look at that wire that we're checking the circuit, not the color of the wire, okay? So we just want to treat all wires equal, all people equal, and just because the wire is brown does not mean that it's a left blinker, right blinker, marker light or not. You need to take your meter and check that. But what I want you guys to do on your 7-way and your pre-trips is just make sure that it fits in properly, make sure that it's tight, and then I want you to run around and check lights, which will be the next thing, but we haven't gotten there yet. Make sure that that is not dragging the ground and that when you turn, you have enough room for it to pull. We were working with a customer not even a week ago, and on 2 instances, his 7-way, the way he had it routed, it actually severed the wire in half when he was making a turn. So let's make sure, we talked about our breakaway cable not dragging the ground, and it's the right. On that breakaway cable, I'm going to go back to that just for 1 second. They have these little red spirally things that I'm a big fan of. If you see my service trailer, it's got them. It's this little red spirally thing. It's like a phone cord. It keeps it tight and intact. The ones you're going to get overwhelmingly when you buy them, they're just long, the nylon. It's a steel cable with a nylon jacket around it. So spring for a couple extra bucks. Get the red ones like a phone cord. But on your 7-way, just make sure that your cable is seated into your connector. Make sure that there's. I like to use dielectric grease on those things. Make sure that there's no foreign material where you're going to connect it. Make sure that the hood catches that little fin on the back of it, and make sure that there's some slack. Do this every time, guys, and so then that gets us into the very next thing, which is tied to the 7-way. So the one thing that the 7-way has in common with everything is it's going to be your brakes, it's going to be your blinker lights, your marker lights, your running lights, and all these things. So if the 7-way is connected, then what I like to do is go to my truck. In my instance, it's a truck. Turn on my headlights and then turn on my 4-way flashers, and then I just do a quick walk around and just see if all my lights are illuminated. And then what I'll do is if everything's blinking like it's supposed to be, then I'll go back up to the truck, turn off the 4-way flashers, and put on a left blinker or a right blinker, and just run to the back to make sure that left and left is right. If they're blinking on the 4-way, we know that that circuit's right, but all we now need to do is prove that just one of them will work. It's enough to assume that if one's working, the other one will work too. You could go that extra step and try your left blinker and your right blinker, but that's just an extra step in the back of the truck, unless you have somebody to watch you. But let's make sure all of our lights are working and illuminated, keep everybody safe out there. And that's with a 7-way, that's your breakaway cable. So let's start with that. So that's going to be something we're going to throw into our playlist for preventative maintenance. Every single time you take your trip on the road, let's make sure that the connection between the tow vehicle and the trailer, whether it's a 5th wheel, horse trailer, bumper pull, any of these trailers, is a good connection so that there's nothing, because you're sharing the road with other people. So now that we've made sure that our connection is good, now that we've made sure that our 7-way is good and happy, that we know that our breakaway is good, then let's check our tire pressure. If you've got a trailer that you're towing, then on the left side of the RV, near the front, you're going to have a little sticker with a legend. It's going to tell you the tire pressure that the manufacturers of that RV are recommending for those tires. You don't go by the pressure that's written on the tire, because a tire manufacturer makes that tire for all kinds of trailers. Let's go with the tire pressure that the manufacturer of the RV recommended, okay? And a lot of times that's anywhere from 50 to 70, maybe up to 100 if you've got a big. So let's just make sure that all the tire pressure is good. While you're looking at your tires, you're going to find most of the times it's a 3-digit number, sometimes it's a 4-digit number. And super conveniently, they put it on the inside. That's going to be your tire date code. So make sure your tires are good. If you have a trailer with dual axles, those tires are good for 5 years. If you've got a trailer with just a single axle, those tires are good for 7 years. What's the difference between the 5 and the 7? The difference between the 5 and the 7 is when you're making your turns and you've got a dual axle trailer, you're getting some scrubbing action going on in that tire. It's not enough. I've got a trailer that I have brand new tires on, but they're 7 years old, and all they've been used for is to drive from Texas to here. So when we moved from Texas to here, we went to, I believe, Discount Tire, bought all brand new tires for the RV, and all we had to do with those tires was drive it from Texas to here, and that trailer hasn't moved since. So you might say, well, there's nothing wrong with those tires. They're out of date, okay? So if you go with tires that are out of date, they do run the risk they lose their rubberiness. How do we prove this? Well, and you've heard me say this on some of my LP videos. If you take a vehicle and you park it on a piece of concrete slab, and that vehicle sits there for a while, and you move that vehicle later, there's always a black stain right there, and that's all think of rubber as a liquid, but it's a super slow liquid, and it's all losing itself out, and that's why there's a stain. Where did the black stain come from? It came from the tire. So these tires that sit there for all this length of time are actually losing their ability to be a tire. They're going back to the state of entropy where they just want to be relaxed. So let's check tire pressure. Let's check our tire dates. Look for cracks in the tires. The last thing I want is a blowout, because it's like I said, pay me now or pay me later. You're either going to get that new tire now, or you're going to get the new tire after you have a blowout. Now you've done all kinds of body work, and you may have taken out the car next to you too. So let's check our tire pressure. And then one last thing we're going to check on. So the final thing is actually, let's check your brakes. Now that you've got all of your connections connected, okay, your 7-way is connected. If you have a trailer that has brakes, you should have a brake controller in your tow vehicle. So I like to do this on a gravel road, but you could do it in a parking lot. Start driving, get up to about, 10 miles an hour or so, and then put your vehicle in neutral, and then on your brake controller there's a lever or something, squeeze it, and see if that trailer is going to engage those brakes and slow you down, okay? So if you do that, then you have confidence that if you're in a situation where you're hitting your brakes, that trailer is not going to try to pass you, okay? Now, obviously, you're going to read your manual on how your brake controller works, but regardless of the manufacturer of the brake controller, at the end of the day, if you're driving, 5, 10 miles an hour is what works for me, then I put my vehicle in neutral, let the vehicle coast, and I try to stop the vehicle from the brake controller, and I squeeze. On mine, it's a lever I squeeze. I've got a Ford F-350, and I can squeeze it there. But some of the aftermarket, it's a lever you squeeze typically, and that should engage the brakes. That way, your 7-ways are good. That all that's working. Now, if you really wanted to, going back to the first thing I talked about with that breakaway, you can pull the pin and try to drive forward, and your brakes should just drag across the ground, and then put the pin back in. So that's a way you can check for those things. So if you do all those things every time you go on the road and just make it part of your, a ritual, then a lot of the problems that we have with issues as we're towing our trailer, well, I didn't see you turn the blinker on. Well, your tire blew up. The thing fell off, the trailer fell off the thing. A lot of that will be abated, and we can all be happy campers as we're traveling around in and among each others. So just channel that inner commercial truck driver that has to do their pre-trip every time they walk around. They're hitting their tires, they're checking everything. You can pretend like you're a pilot, you're getting ready to go on a pre-flight, you're going to check your flaps or ailerons and do all your things with your brakes. Do all those things, and because you are responsible for that trailer that's going behind you. It's not somebody else's problem, it's your problem. So happy campers, say My RV Works, and we really want you to be safe out there. And so be on the lookout for building of this playlist. We're going to be going through furnaces and tanks and roofs and all kinds of stuff. I don't know how big our list is. It's getting quite extensive. But these are all the things that if you were just to follow all these procedures, you'll be a happy camper and your RV will be thanking you for it. So this is Darren signing off until our next video. Thank you for watching.